Look at us go. I love it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Career Opportunities for Hygienists Beyond Clinical Practice. My name is David Rice, and I am honored to be your moderator here this evening. I'm going to talk about three housekeeping, not housekeeping things to get started. So one, big thank you to our friends at Hugh Freedy Group for hosting this event, for sponsoring this event. This is a big deal. I'm not sure how many of you know how hard it is to coordinate all of us together this evening, but it's kind of a big thing. So it's a testament, I think, to Hugh Freedy talking about best in practice, and it's not just a mantra for them. I think it's mission, and all of us who are here tonight can really super appreciate that mission. So a couple things to get your help on. One, help us say thanks to Hugh Freedy tonight. You've got an amazing group of panelists here. So if you feel like you're in a safe spot and you happen to have your phone and you're staring at your computer and you want to take a screenshot and somebody says something uber amazing and you've got friends who couldn't be here, throw it up on Instagram, tag whoever's saying the awesomeness, or all of us, please tag at Hugh Freedy Group. That kind of helps them know that we're all here paying attention and appreciative of everything they've done. And I think most importantly for me, after thanking all of you for showing up, is thanking this group of panelists. I am a gigantic fan. As you all know, I follow all of you, not just on Instagram, but all the really cool things you do. So I think, although none of you really need any introduction, if we can take 45 seconds for them, one person who doesn't know the real you, and go around the horn. Let's start with you, Katrina, and just kind of share a little bit about you, and we'll jump on in.
Oh, awesome. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Katrina Sanders, lovingly known as the Dental Hygienist. Cheers. I'm a practicing periodontal hygienist here in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. I work alongside amazing periodontists at AZ Perio. I'm also an international speaker, consultant, podcaster, and dog mom. And I'm so excited to be here amongst all of these incredible people this evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Rice, for moderating this. Hugh Freedy Group, y'all are just absolutely incredible. It's a true honor to be here. I used Hugh Freedy instruments in hygiene school, and so it's just incredible to be here on the other side, which I know we're going to unpack this evening. And thank you so much to the amazing co-panelists here. You ladies are just absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for being here.
All right, who's next? Amber, you're it.
Oh, I'm it. Wonderful. Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Auger. I'm a practicing dental hygienist. I'm an international speaker, consultant, and creator of Thrive in the App. And I am just so grateful that you have joined us, many of you coming off of a long work day. So I am sure that you will enjoy this time. We'll make it super fun and interactive. And again, thank you for being here. And I'll toss the baton to Irene.
Me juggling it, like all of the other things in my life. Hi, everyone. My name is Irene on Instagram. I go by Tooth Life Irene, and I am a Canadian-based practicing dental hygienist who owns her own practice, which is where I am. I get to do a lot of really cool things on social media. I'm also an international speaker and KOL for a lot of different companies, including Hugh Freedy Group. So thank you so much for having us here today and having me. Again, like Katrina, I used Hugh Freedy instruments in school, so it's kind of like a full circle thing. And I'm honored to be among such amazing people. And Dr. Rice, you keep those questions in mind, sir.
I will do my best. Who's up next, Irene?
Oh, let's go with Melina. Yeah.
I'm Malia Lewis. I'm a dental hygienist, obviously, here in Utah, and I work private practice, but I also teach at a university, the Utah Valley University, which is definitely so fun and such a passion of mine. I love education. And that's how Hygiene Edge, I'm one of the creators of Hygiene Edge, started, because we just love educating and helping people learn in easier, better ways, especially online. So again, I'm excited to chat about all the things hygienists can do, because I know my students, they always ask me. So this is such an important topic.
Awesome. Fiona.
Okay, that leaves me. So my name is Fiona, and and you probably may or may not know me from my handle at Mouthbox. A couple of different things under my belt: clinical instructor, consultant, speaker, mentor, pending. I like to put pending because I'm always looking for more to add to my plate, obviously. So I like to put that in there. And I'm really just excited tonight because I think that's something that we always talk about as hygienists. How do we evolve and push past just identifying ourselves as being in the op? And so I think this is really a great opportunity. And thank you so much for Q3 for identifying this topic and having all these lovely ladies here, and of course you, Dr. Rice, and and giving the opportunity to hear a lot about these other opportunities, or maybe even how we got there or how you can get there yourself.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And you know, I was going to say I couldn't have handpicked a better group of people, but clearly you were all handpicked to be here. So there's reasons for it. And we're going to talk about beyond clinical practice and all the opportunities. Let's start with corporate opportunities. Amber, I know you have a lot of experience in that. So do you want to kick us off on what that experience is, what people can expect, things like that?
Sure, absolutely. So I think when we start to look at career opportunities outside of the traditional op, the first thing we think of is, well, where do we go from here? We've only been clinicians, right? And that is the benefit of going into corporate, is when we look at corporate roles, these companies are really looking for people who understand hygienists. So what I do is I work with RDH Magazine as one of my corporate clients. I also have other clients that I work with, and I help them with strategizing everything from marketing to what the hygienists really need. You know, what products do we need? What innovations do we need? What are we looking to solve? What problems can we solve for the overall practicing hygienists throughout the world, which is really cool. I mean, tonight we have some of us from the US, some of us from Canada, all here together. So that is an amazing opportunity when it comes to the corporate side of things. So you may not know how to kind of bridge that gap. So the biggest thing is networking. I went to a conference back in 2016 called Career Fusion. And when I went, I had no idea what I wanted to do outside of the operatory. But I knew for me, starting dental hygiene in 2010 with carpal tunnel, I knew I wouldn't be able to practice full-time forever. And that's why I diversified. Now I'm still practicing part-time and doing these consulting roles. And it's really fun because I get to take what patients are saying to me and learning what I need improvements on, and then bring that to the corporate side.
I love that. Katrina, how about you? I know you've got a ton of experience there as well.
Yeah, I thank you so much, Amber, for sharing that insight. I too, very similar to Amber, work alongside several different companies as a consultant. And I'll premise this by saying, when I started working as a dental hygienist, I didn't understand that some of these roles, some of these paths that we're going to talk about tonight, I didn't even know that they existed. I don't know if you all on this panel felt this way at some point, but I'm like, wait, what is this? And so one thing I'll say about particularly dentistry is that we're still trying to figure out how to optimize the brain of somebody like an Amber Auger, like an Irene, where you know that there are clinicians out there who still have their foot in the operatory. And that's a theme I want to keep going back to. They have their foot in the operatory and they're very connected to patient care, but they understand the pain points of the clinician. And so a lot of the work that I do on the corporate side is not just working in a consultant fashion, but I know Amber also does this as well. I will build content for a lot of these companies. So sometimes the PowerPoints that you might see, or some of the marketing pieces that are out there, were actually developed by people like myself or Amber. And you wouldn't know that. It's been rebranded, but these are things that we have built out. A critical layer to a lot of this, and I know we're going to get into how do we make that transition from the operatory into some of these experiences. But one piece that I really want everybody tonight listening to think about is, when a company wants to reach out to a consultant and wants to bring that consultant on, there's a really important layer to that consultant having a passion and a love for dentistry. And all too often, I find that when people want to get out of the op, it's because they're very disenchanted or they've fallen out of love with dental hygiene. And that's a really difficult space for these companies to want to work with a clinician. So remember, those of you who are thinking, oh, corporate would be so cool. I would love to work alongside the big names that are out there. I would love to be developing content. I'd love to sit on these, panels where they're interviewing hygienists in clinical practice and saying, what are some of the challenges you have in working with this product? Can I send you this product and have you try it in the op and have you write an article about a review of your experience or film a video of you? All of these are things that we do in that relationship in corporate. If you want to be stepping into those roles, I think the deepest prerequisite is a love and a passion for dentistry and serving the patients that are sitting in your chair.
That is a true story. Fiona, Malia, anything to add?
Sorry, go ahead.
That's the Canadian politeness there. No, you go. I was just actually going to comment on something that I saw in the chat there, where it was, you can get sales research, but being mindful for a bachelor's degree. And I'll be honest, a lot of times your qualifications that you have now may even be enough. You shouldn't always look at that as a blockage to go forward. For me, I don't have my bachelor's yet. I'm currently working on it, but I did get a position without that bachelor's degree. I did have a sales background, which did help to, push that forward. But also you do have your hygiene. And so that is experience and qualification right there. So I think you should also look at that.
Two of my really close friends are in sales in dentistry and like dental sales from Hygiene, who still practice kind of part-time in temp, but they're quite successful sales reps, and they've been hired to work first with hygiene focused products, and now one is selling endo devices, which is completely unrelated to dental hygiene. So I think that if you go in with a willingness to learn, I think that's something that can't be taught, whether you have a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. Yes. You can't teach someone to want to learn new things. If you go in with like a passion for learning and a growth mindset and an ownership mindset, like you're taking full responsibility of those contracts, those clients, those key people in the industry, then you'll be more successful than someone who has really high credentials and a great resume, but is kind of just like, I'm too smart for this,
Yeah.
Very well said.
I think with corporate, if you want to work for a company, you need to be on LinkedIn. That's such a huge way to network with different companies, because even just like on Instagram or other social medias, like you might be connecting with other hygienists, which is super fun. I love it. It always fills my dental bucket of like loving what I'm doing. But if you want to connect with any headhunter or any hiring manager or a marketing team or a sales team or whatever, they're all on LinkedIn. So making a presence there is such a huge part of it, which is weird for dental because, I've never got a job clinically with LinkedIn, but if you're looking for something else, you definitely want to be on there. It's such a huge part.
And I mean, how many of the people on this panel have had companies reach out to them on LinkedIn, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the space where a lot of these companies are looking for who has the unique ideas, who has the reach, who has a different voice. And I think that's an important piece to all of this to consider.
Yeah. There are a lot of really interesting companies that work outside of the dental space on LinkedIn that I get kind of like random work from. So I'm a part of a few like research companies that will say, our team has a client looking to learn more about the orthodontic space, or our team is looking to learn more about the speaker space in dentistry. Like, would you be able to do a 1-hour call with our whatever? And then I just tell them what my consulting fee is. And I say, sure, no problem. Like, I'll tell you everything that I know. And you can earn a few extra bucks on the side, but you've got to spend the time to put together a pretty detailed LinkedIn profile. Mm-hmm. And we don't use LinkedIn like it used to be. It used to be just like a copy and paste of your resume and like, link to the schools that you went to. But now there's learning opportunities, there's job postings. People are almost as active, if not more active on LinkedIn than they are on Facebook, posting blogs and trying to get followers and connections. So it's if you haven't used LinkedIn for a while, I encourage perhaps like a deep dive in some YouTube videos on how to optimize it so that you're ranking higher in searches. So if someone says dental hygienist experience in ortho, that you pop up as one of the first like 2 pages. That'll encourage them to, sure, maybe it's a copy and paste of a generic message of like, hey, would you be interested in this position? But you're making it a little bit more easier for someone to find out. And your consulting fee is going to be based on your experience. So I would hate to throw a number out there because my fee may be a little higher or lower than your fee. So I think it's all relative to the time and effort put into your career.
Great point. It's funny. I'm literally typing your consultant fee is based on experience.
Did you just write the same thing?
I just wrote that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Katrina says the
Yeah.
fair market value, fancy term.
What's a fair market? Well, actually, if you don't mind, I want to take just a short moment to actually explain what that is,
Sure.
to describe. So the fair market value is it's established by your curriculum vitae, which is, for those of us who are in education, it's a super fancy resume. And this is really where we start to see, yes, education is important. Your fair market value, if you have a higher degree, will be higher. But it's also things like, where have you spoken? What articles have you published? What reach do you have? What research have you done? And so one theme that many of you will hear likely throughout tonight is really putting your name out there and creating a voice and creating space within the dental profession for your voice. A lot of questions are popping up about how do you find headhunters on LinkedIn? Usually they're the ones finding you. It's hard to find them. It really is. You know, they're reaching out to you because they're observing, they're seeing that you're creating content consistently. So there are opportunities to write blogs. There are opportunities to write articles, get published in things, show that you are expanding your education. Those are ways that it demonstrates to a potential client that you value yourself and you value the education that you're bringing into the work that you're doing for them.
I love that. And if I could like shrink it into a super short answer right here is pay attention to what these 5 ladies are doing and pay attention to the consistency with which they're doing it. So that's how you're going to get noticed by people. It's what you put out and it's about your consistency. Because if you put it out once and it was amazing and people don't see you for a month or 2 months, all that amazing just sort of drifts away. So all those things matter a lot. Let's come back to this, but Katrina, what about research? That's another opportunity and a great way for people to really develop a brand and a presence.
Yeah, research is interesting because it's a little bit of an arm, as Irene had shared, and I'd love to even hear Irene's thoughts on this, but it's a bit of an arm or an extension in the corporate space. So a lot of the research pieces that I've done have been, we have this product and we want to see how it performs in certain types of conditions. So there's a lot of opportunity for hygienists based on their experience in working with some of these corporations to segue into doing research. This oftentimes does require you to have a really great working relationship with your employer so that you can say, hey, I would like to administer this mouth rinse to our patients who have received scaling and root planing and follow them, track them, and see what this looks like. Of course, for those of you who absolutely loved your research and statistics classes in hygiene school, the 4 of you listening that absolutely loved those classes, that's really where you're scratching that itch for those of you who really enjoyed that, because now you're gathering that data, you're looking at a lot of the content that's out there, you're spending a lot of time on Google Scholar. Being in that research space is very interesting because to be onboarded into something like that, one of the things that I found early on was I had companies watching what I was doing in the op. So there are a few companies that noticed, okay, there's a hygienist in Scottsdale, Arizona, who's using a lot of this product all of a sudden. What's going on over here? And so one thing I want you to consider, those of you who are interested in expanding your role in corporate or even maybe doing research, is what representatives, what account managers are walking in and out of your clinical doors? And are those products that you absolutely love and you are using on a consistent basis? Because they're absolutely going to want to work with clinicians who believe in the product. From an unbiased perspective, they want the data, of course, behind all of that. We know that. But that is, for me, that has been the way that I've been able to step into that research space. Irene, have you noticed the same thing on your end with a lot of the research you've done?
I think when we think about research, we think of it like person with a lab coat in a laboratory with safety glasses on, making explosive things out of beakers, holding them. And like, I think the term research has this perception of like crazy Bill Nye the Science Guy slash hygienist. But, you know, we do research every single day in a variety of different ways. We research new products when we speak to our patients in the operatory. I research like crazy before I post anything to social media. And as speakers and KOLs, we research every single one of our slides 15 times to make sure that there isn't a better or smarter way of saying something, and that it actually is what you feel is correct. So, you know, if you decide you want to go that research route, there's a variety of different arms and umbrellas that you can live under. I don't live in an operatory that I'm, you know, or in a lab where I'm, you know, conducting experiments, but I'm conducting my experiments kind of in my op, and also for you people on social media and videos. Like I'm going to post something in a couple of days about an SRP product that now I'm testing out to see if it actually helps increase collagen, fibroblast, and odontoblast formation. But I did it on half of the mouth, and then the other half I didn't. So, you know, my own little form of research from within the op, that could be something that you do too. And sure, it's anecdotal, perhaps it's not controlled and you're not following a system in place, but there, you got to start somewhere, right?
One layer I want to add to that too is in the publishing space around research as well. So several of us work with wonderful publishing entities where they are asking for research-based articles. And so this again goes back to the peeps out there that absolutely love research articles and loved that class in hygiene school where you had to read those research articles. But publishing is another terrific way to deep dive into that research. Where you're doing systematic reviews or you're creating content, imaging and things like that for publishing entities. And that, again, really involves a lot of a deep-rooted understanding of the new research that's out, the new data, and making sure that it's relevant to the dental community.
And speakers pay for that too, like authors pay for that. Like the reality is that my value of time is not going to be best used by sitting in front of a computer for 4 hours trying to prove or disprove my article. I'm going to write my article, and I have someone that I work with that I pay on an hourly basis, and I say, prove or disprove what I just wrote, because this is getting published in 2 months in this magazine and they need references and resources. My time is better billed in the operatory or doing a CE event or something, not, you know, on that side. So if you're afraid of like, well, I don't want the microscope to be on me, I don't want to be the person who wrote this piece, you could be a partner with someone and assist them in getting that piece to the final kind of point. In our industry, it's kind of called like a fragment of a ghostwriter, where you're ghostwriting some of the piece, maybe not all of it, maybe just some of it, or maybe the whole thing. And then your fees can be dictated based on either your word count, or you can have different types of articles that are written. If it's a scientific article with a lot of research, that might be weighted more heavily. So you would charge, I don't know, $1,000 more than what your other pieces would be. And that might be another way that you go at it, and not have to be the person on the cover of the magazine, but you're really helping that get that message out a little bit further. And how do you find those co-authors? You look at the magazines that the people are writing in, and you send them a message and you say, hey, Jean, hey, Irene, my name is Jean. I want to help co-author some articles. If you're ever looking for a content creator to help you with your research or help you polish these things together, here are a couple of pieces of my work that I've done. Take a look at these. Sometimes I get some of those messages that come in and they actually read the article to me, which I find really helpful. So I listen to the articles driving home in and out. So you might say, hey, here's 2 paragraphs that I wrote on the effectiveness of using STF and what type of glass ionomer I should use afterwards. Let me know what you think. Here are my fees. I charge 50 cents per word, whatever that is. That would be a really great way to get your foot out there, but just flip through the magazines and find the name and find their credentials.
I love that. Amber, do you want to chime in? Because you obviously have a lot of ability to help in that space.
Thank you so much. Yes. Well, I will say that I started my career as a speaker, writer, consultant with writing. So it wasn't that I decided immediately that I wanted to be a speaker. And I will tell you this, you know, back when I graduated, if I had to do a 5-minute presentation, I was the one sweating. So I never thought that doing 8-hour programs and doing what I do now is what I would love, but I do. And I love the diversity of it. So I have so many opportunities and we're always looking for new writers with RDH Magazine, and I am the editor of the RDH Graduate Newsletter. So if you want to try and get your feet wet and try an article that's more like a blog type style, that's where you can see me. And I can work with you to help you polish your writing skills. And you may not feel like you're really passionate about research, but you might be passionate about a topic and learn how to fall in love with the research. That's for me where I found my love for perio and public health. So it wasn't that I always have loved diving in and highlighting, and now that brings back hygiene trauma, but I have found that you always lead with your passion. And Katrina said that before too. I think what makes us, really successful as public speakers is that we let our passion drive what we're doing. Where I look at many of the people on this call, many of us don't spend much time at home anymore, and we wouldn't keep doing what we do if we didn't love what we're doing. So that's really important when clients are looking at you as well.
Love that. Malia, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that echoes exactly. I really love the point of research doesn't have to be in a lab. Like in marketing, we do tons of market research to see what works and doesn't work. And so that's an avenue you can go into. And we as hygienists, I know it's hard to say like, we went to school, we learned how to be in an op, but I'm like, we're so smart. Hygienists are some of the smartest people I know. I've talked to some like vendors and stuff, and they're like, we would rather talk to the dentist because the hygienist asks so many questions because we're so smart and we want to know how things work and the science and how it works for our patients. And I think like you can totally fit into these roles. It might not look like a clear like transition, but you can do it. We're smart enough and capable of enough. I definitely am excited for hygiene for the next couple of years because we're gonna like take over the world.
Starting with the map behind you. Point on the map where
Yes,
we're
what location will we start with?
The whole front of the world takeover will happen from over here.
All of it.
I love it. I love it. Fiona, what do you think?
Research-wise, I think definitely it's more than what you're, like Irene said, it's more than that lab coat in the lab, taking a look at something specific. I've definitely researched for, upcoming products for companies. Would hygienists be favorable? Would it be favorable in the op for these hygienists? How would it be used? What would it look like for a hygienist in the op? So really utilizing what we do on an everyday basis in the op, but using that for research purposes. So definitely it can be very real, very now for anybody that's interested in that. And I think a lot of you kind of really pointed towards it. It's like, reach out to the people that you see that are doing it and see if they want your help in this area. And the other thing that everybody's been talking about, which I really feel firmly on, is you've got to have passion. So once you find that you're passionate about something, you don't have to be passionate about everything that you're doing in the op. Maybe you're passionate about SRP. That's where you're going to focus and that's where you're going to go in that lane. Maybe you're passionate about kids, in the op, whatever it may be. Find that thing that really gets you excited. And when you look at your schedule, like, yes, this is what I'm working on today. This is who I'm seeing. That's what's going to really drive you. And if you choose those particular topics that are driving you in the op, they're going to drive you further into whatever it is that you want to do. And that includes research.
I love that.
And it's okay if that changes. Sometimes you might say yes to something, and then when you get in that lane, if you will, you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then you can just be like, you know what? Thank you so much for this opportunity, but I'm out. And then you can have a great network where you can say, hey, I think this would be, I've done that many times with Katrina, even saying like, that article that you want is really way too scientific for me, but Katrina loves writing that way. Let me introduce you to Katrina.
She would love that opportunity to procure that.
Would love to optimize that.
But so that's a fantastic point on top. Like one more layer is never be afraid to say, this is an amazing opportunity, but I know someone this is a better fit for. And in the beginning, I'm guessing all of us here jumped at all of these opportunities because we're afraid to let it go.
No way.
But as you get in these circles of people, every time you send something to Katrina or Irene or Malia or Amber or Fiona, like stuff comes back. So don't worry about being, a missed opportunity. Worry more about staying in your lane and keeping that passion. So I love that. Fiona,
Katrina and I do that a lot together.
Yeah,
we do.
There's at least a monthly email of like an introduction to someone Like a company
Mhm.
that I worked with, I connected with the podcast, and then I connected
Mhm.
her with Katrina. Katrina then took that same company and connected it with her sister, who is a foot surgeon. And like, and then there's the, can you write an article back and forth? And I'm like, this is not really my style. Like, Katrina, do this. And the same with speaking gigs. Like we
Yeah.
send each other speaking gigs all the time. And I think the thing is that when you get into whatever it is, or whatever lane or whatever choice of career you want to do outside of the operatory, you have this gut instinct all the time that it's like, if I don't say yes to this, I won't get the next one. And if I
Yeah.
don't do this gig, then I won't get scouted for the next gig. Or if I don't write this article that perhaps I'm not passionate about, no one will want me to write for them. And the reality is that is untrue. And you don't learn that reality until you're a few years in. So like even us telling you this now, it's like, your parent that's like, don't touch the fire, it's hot. And then you end up touching the fire anyways. But it's learn to work with circles of people and make true friendships instead of like, the superficial friendships of things that you believe is like your closest friend, but reality is they're going to say yes to the gig that they should have given to you. It's one of those kind of hard truths.
Yeah, and I want to echo,
Yeah.
Irene, off of what you were saying, because I think all of you are watching this panel, and what you're seeing right now, by the way, everyone, is the highlights reel of, yes, and I've written this article for this, and I worked with this company, and I've done this and I've done that. But Amber, you and I have been in this boat. Irene, you and I have been in this boat, like where you're just like, because you get so stressed out by like what's coming at you, And so what I want you all to know is that we have, I've been in this for almost 6 years now. So I have 6 years of experience of, first of all, saying yes to everything and then figuring it out later, because by the way, that's like a huge tip early on, like say yes, and then like have the freak out in the background. Like, what do I do? How do I do this? Google's your friend, right? Like you figure everything, how to write a research article without losing your mind, all those things that you do.
Yeah.
So, you start with those things, and then as you learn about yourself, and none of us can tell you,
Right.
what is your passion, or what do you love? When I was in hygiene school, I was super into pediatrics. Like I was like, I love kids. Like I love SpongeBob. I'm basically a big kid. Like, let's do this. And now I'm like, I love perio. And so you start to learn as you're developing, but you don't know that right out the gate. And so you do have to kiss a lot of proverbial weird frogs in order to get to the space where you're like, this is the kind of work I want to do. These are the companies that I enjoy working with. These are the types of collaborations that I love. I love being on camera. I don't love being on camera. I hate the sound of my voice. I want to do podcast, whatever that may be. So you're learning and you're growing. And so as you look through all of these different career paths, you are the one, you are the star. You're the one that's working in corporate. You're the one that's working in research. You're the one that is the educator. So you have to fuel that passion. And if you're in a space where you're dispassionate about it, then you take the time to really think through, is it me? Is it the environment? Is it the work I'm doing? Where am I going from here? But we all had that runway. And I think, quite honestly, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure many panelists will agree. I'm still learning, like, oh, turns out I'm not interested in doing that, but I said yes to it. So we got to get through this. And that's the journey. The journey is the destination, they say, right?
True stories. So, let's switch gears for a second and talk about, community volunteering, tons of opportunities in dentistry for there, and it all connects back to what we're talking about now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that even in school, that was something that was really was a passion for me. And so when I graduated, I really took a look at, okay, how can I fit this into what I'm doing? Where can I go? What can I do with the volunteering and helping out with the community? And I mean, there's multiple ways to look at it. You can look at community work locally. You can look at it abroad. I've done all of these. You can look at doing them in many different ways and fashions. For me, I've taken the road of doing, presentations at schools, helping with young kids, teaching them, I've looked at abroad. I've definitely gone to, exciting different countries. I think definitely Amber and Irene, I know you guys also did some mission work abroad as well too. And it's really rewarding and really exciting. Some of those places I've been to, Nicaragua, Peru, Cambodia was on the list, but hopefully that's coming up. And I think a couple of things to look at when you're wanting to do these things. You can look at local organizations, study clubs. I currently am part of a study club that does outreach in locally, which would be in Toronto. So if you're in Toronto, you can definitely message me. You can look at your regulatory bodies. Sometimes or organizations, sometimes they have a list of trusted organizations that are providing volunteer work locally abroad. I took a jump when I first did it, and I actually went by myself. I went to Nicaragua by myself with an organization. I had no idea who they were. They created the team for me. That's the other thing, right? You're worried about going to these abroad with no team. You just want to go solo. You have that passion. And so I went with a team. I was hoping everything was going to be amazing, and it absolutely was just beyond that, because you're meeting people who have that passion, that same passion. And so already you're a leg up. You are with people who are on the same, plane as you, same one as you, same drive as you. So it really makes for great friendships, great experiences. I can say I've been to many people's weddings and still friends with these people like 6 years later. So definitely volunteering, if that's something for you, or traveling even, you can definitely get that experience in too.
I think that's a really strong point, that flying solo on things like that doesn't mean you're flying solo, because likes like likes. So you're going to wind up in a place with a whole lot of people just like you, even if your initial leap off point is, by yourself. So really cool. Malia, let's talk about education. That's a big category and opportunity.
It's a huge category. And I feel like a lot of times people have come up to me or us and said I'm tired of the operatory. Is education my only option? So hopefully this webinar is showing you that it's not your only option. But it is such a big part. I mean, if you are semi-interested in education, the research shows that the majority of the educators will be retiring in the next 5-ish years. So it's a great time to start really looking into that, delving into that, if that seems interested to you. One thing with education, I would say, if you are so tired of being a hygienist, you don't want to work with patients anymore, you don't want to talk about bacteria, education might not be the best next step for you, because that's honestly, you're still doing that every single day, but to a higher level. You're really in the research and you're really working with all these technical things. And if you're a clinical instructor, working with students one-on-one with their patients, you're literally still seeing patients every day, but now you're managing the students' emotions as well as your patient's emotions. So it's kind of this, it's a lot. It's sometimes harder personally, but it's such a fun, rewarding career. I mean, I'm learning something new every single day. Even years later, students will bring up questions and I'm like, that is a great question. I've never thought about it that way. So I definitely have felt like I'm a better clinician because of that, because if you can teach it to someone, then you really have to think about it. So to get into education, there's lots of different ways, but a big one is networking. Well, first of all, if you probably will need to get a higher level degree. This is the one job that they really, really love. A master's degree or even a doctorate if you're going to go really down the education path. But a lot of schools, and depending on your state, you can work with your associate if you're teaching an associate level, but they really do love to see that higher degree. So if that's something you're kind of interested in, it might be good to look into that. Networking is huge when it comes to education. People love to hire someone that they know that's passionate about education, passionate about dental hygiene, that knows their stuff. Even though you've never stepped foot in a school since you graduated, just networking with these educators is really helpful, important. How I got my first job in education was from one of my old professors, actually. I reached out to him and I said, hey, if you ever need a sub in school, let me know. I'm here and I'm free. And he was like, yeah, we totally do. Come in and we'll interview, and get your feet wet. And I think that just initial conversation really jumped my start in education, which has been great. And then working at a university now, it's just been networking with people in my state through actually professional organizations and through study clubs and things. A lot of educators are part of these study clubs, or the American Dental Hygienists Association. a lot of it's run by educators. So if you want to be an educator, you kind of want to be around them. So be a part of your professional organizations to network and show your passion when it comes to education. So I can't believe I'm in education. I'm not going to lie. When I was a student, I remember being in my last semester working on my acute patient that had been coming back, it's like its 7th appointment. And I was like, this is the worst. I can't believe I'm going to be a hygienist. This is my life for the next whatever years. But just getting out of school and being a part of like real life dentistry, it totally showed like, no, this is such a cool opportunity. I want to share that passion with students and show how cool dentistry can be while in school, but also definitely when you're out of school. So yeah, it's a fun career. It's tricky. You learn a lot. You get a lot of feedback. Students right now, especially now, they're not afraid to tell you if you're doing something wrong or if they don't like you. Or
those instructor reviews at the end of the semester are like a reality for sure.
Yeah. You think you're really good, and then you're like, oh no, I don't even know what I'm doing. So you kind of have to have some thick skin sometime, which is fine. I mean, I've learned a lot about myself and it's been good that way. So yeah, it's a great career if you're interested in education, and definitely reach out. We would love, all three of us at Hygiene Edge are educators. We would love to talk more about education. It's such a key part of our profession that is so important to develop great clinicians and researchers and educators. And it's such a good foundation for what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So
yeah, and all these things really go hand in hand, don't they? I mean, you think about all of you are educators. All of you are in academia in some way, shape, or form, some formal, full-time, some not. But that's really what content generation is in some way, shape, or form. So I don't want us to miss out on the entrepreneurial side of opportunities here. So Irene, do you want to kick us off there?
Sure.
Awesome.
And we're talking about practice ownership specifically. Okay. So, and this is the common questions that I get is, how do you start? Where do you begin? How do I know if I can do it or not? What types of things do I need to consider? So certain provinces in Canada, just like certain states in the United States, allow dental hygienists to practice under what's called an independent dental hygiene license. Depending on your state or your province, that comes with a different set of rules. So what I do here in my space may be very different than what you're able to do, if at all. Like, for example, I can't give local anesthetic, but I can open a practice and have my own X-ray machine. I can't prescribe my own radiographs, but I can own the machine itself. Very strange. So the first thing you need to do is figure out if you're living in a state that has these types of kind of requirements, or what the classification of this type of business model would look like for you. Number two is you need to work backwards from what your vision is. So let's say you do live in a state or a province that can open a practice. You need to basically write down on a piece of paper all of your must-haves in your office. I knew I wanted a startup. I knew I wanted my own equipment. I wanted brand new things. I wanted all of the shiny new tools. So I basically put together like a dream practice scrapbook. I don't know if anyone's like a Legally Blonde fan, like Elle Woods and her sort of like wedding scrapbook. Like it was like my dental office scrapbook. I know. I love you too. So it was this just like idea with, and it wasn't really a scrapbook. It was like a binder with a variety of different sections in it, and it had tabs of equipment. Yes. And this is Bruiser Woods. Yes. So that was my dream. So I knew that, okay, for me to do that dream, I needed to save X amount of money, and the practice was going to cost me X amount of money. And then all of the legal stuff that comes behind it. But the molar of the story is start with your vision and then work backwards, because you'll get lost in all of the nitty gritty of like, who applies for this permit and how much is this going to cost? Work with a distributor that you feel will really help you. And when I say that, I mean someone that's going to guide you the whole way and afterwards. It's the follow through at the very end. I'm almost 2 years into owning my practice. We just put in this operatory a few months ago. So, you want someone that's going to be with you for the long game. And that might mean that you're paying a little bit more, 5%, maybe 10% more. But my mom always says that we're too poor to buy cheap things, because this is a chair or this is a piece of equipment that hopefully will outlive you. and will live you to the sale of your practice to someone that will take it further on. Business plans. Do we have time for a quick note on a business plan?
Let's do it.
I took a couple of courses online on how to write my own business plan, free business plan courses from BBC, which is a Canadian organization. You can probably just sign up with, I mean, they don't really care if you live here or not, but just what your bank is looking for. I made an appointment with the bank that I now have my financing with, and I spoke to one of the people in the healthcare department. So if you apply for a loan through the bank, there's a specific department that provides loans to dentists, doctors, chiropractors, any form of physician, and hygienists. Unfortunately, your business plan has to make sense to an underwriter who is a completely different person that doesn't care about who you are. And if they Google your name, they don't care that you wrote a fabulous article in RDH magazine that got 50 million downloads. All they want to know is, do the numbers at the beginning match the numbers at the end? And what are the projections going to look like? What do you expect your overhead's going to be? What are the percentages of new patients that are coming in? And what are independent little metrics that can get quite fancy? So I met with this person first and I said, what does your underwriter need to make this work? And then I worked backwards when creating my business plan to see if all of those numbers would work, followed by taking some online courses on how to make sure that my business plan gets approved, because you really only get one shot with that underwriter. And then you got to move to another bank and kind of go from there. So getting your kind of paperwork first is really exciting. And I didn't tell anybody that I was doing this until it was done. Like, I was very excited about it. And deep down in my heart, I mean, Katrina and I were on the microphone all the time, and I don't think we barely spoke about the behind the scenes part of it. And because there's a very sliver of chance that it might not work and it might not pull through in the caliber that I wanted to go into. So that's the startup. If you're purchasing, is a lot easier. You basically go to a company that appraises practices. One that I know of, a friend of mine works as a dental hygienist. Actually, she works on appraising practices. It's called ROI Corp, Roy Corp. You basically go to them and say, hey, I have $1 million burning a hole in my pocket. I want to purchase a practice in this circle. I mean, for $1 million, you don't get much these days. You'll get a 3-operatory practice that's falling apart. So it's cheaper to build it what you want than buy it. But you're buying the patient charts, which is very important. They'll walk you through what that looks like, what the acquisition of a new patient costs versus what a patient is per year. I mean, Dr. Rice, you probably know all these metrics as a dental practice owner. What a patient value is over the course of the year. They appraise that and they say, okay, this practice is appraised at 1.2 million with, 1,200 active patients, 3 ops, and 2 cavitrons that are falling apart. So those are the two ways you can do it. Startups are harder. So if you've got the tenacity and if you are not afraid to fail and if you have some money in the bank. So we had an idea that, like, if I had to pay the bills for 4 months, I needed a little float. If I had to pay the bills for 4 months and I had no patients coming in the door, that I don't want to feel that stress that I can't pay my people that work here. So and that's called a personal injection. So you have to have a certain personal injection in the bank to float your running capital, which is what that's called. So plan first, don't talk so much about it until you're ready. Because originally I thought I was going to have different chairs in here. And originally I thought I was going to have different equipment. And things change. And the last thing you want to do is like tell the whole world of all of the things that you're going to do. And then things change.
That's a lot of great information.
Too much. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, it's great. And, without kind of carrying it further, when you all have more questions, you can reach out to everybody who's here and be helpful. I can't speak so much on the hygiene side. I can speak from an ownership side. So I've owned 4 different practices, 2 startups, 2 acquisitions. So feel free.
Which one was harder?
We're all happy to help you.
Startup or acquisition?
2 of each.
Which one was harder?
Oh, which one is harder?
I mean, unless your acquisition was also a rebrand, then that would suck too.
Yeah, I'm going to say startup. I needed more runway for the startup. So, and I would say you need a stronger stomach muscle for a startup, because there's no butts and seats on day one necessarily, where in an acquisition, you can have a patient.
A rollover.
which is goodwill, right? No one cares about equipment. It's all what you're buying is somebody coming in and seeing you instead of the prior owner. So yes, I would agree with you that the startup was harder, I think, from a mental strength standpoint. But I'm gonna say by like 9 months, 10 months deep, you could see the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow on both sides. You know, it was different for
The
each
pot of
one.
gold. I'm still at an overhead of 61%. So if you want to tell me how to get my overhead down to 50 so I can see the pot of gold, I'd be very happy. No, Andrea, I did not take any business courses, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts, including the Dentalpreneur podcast, which is hosted by Dr. Mark Costas. I'm also part of his Facebook group called the Dental Startup Group, and he releases a podcast every day, and I listen to 3 podcasts a day. So
yeah, there's some great people out there too.
The Dental Marketer is also another one that I listen to.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. There's a guy out there, Jonathan Miller, you all need to connect with. If you're thinking about starting up a practice, he's one of my favorite people in dentistry, and he's more of an information, not an affirmation guy. So I love podcasts and I love Facebook groups, but Jonathan's like down and dirty, get right to business. So do all those things Irene said, and then connect with people who this is what they do all day, every day. All right. So listen, we covered a lot of ground. I want to kind of like fast track here and talk about tips. So in your favorite lane that we've talked about, your favorite pathway or a different pathway, Katrina, like what tips would you have to offer tonight for like how to? You're listening here today and you want to get from where you are to the next space.
Oh my gosh, how much time you got? I don't know. So how to, I would say, first and foremost, be active, be present, network, show up. And what I mean by that is I get a lot of questions about, I'm a speaker and I need a sponsoring partner and how do I get more sponsors? Or I want to start writing and how do I get in front of these people? You've got to go to your local study clubs. You have to show up to the large trade shows. ADHA is coming up in just a few short days, and we've got RDH Under One Roof coming up next month. Be present, be in those rooms, take up that space, connect with those people, brush shoulders, have a glass of wine with the people on this panel. It's being present and people seeing your face. That's really critical. The other piece that I would say is consistency. Consistency is so critical. And that is, how do you show up? That is, how do you show up on social media? There are days, and I will speak for every single person on this panel because you'd be lying if this is not true. There are days when you wake up and it happened to me this morning. I'm just going to be completely honest. A corporate relationship that I have, there were like 3 fires that needed to be burnt out, that needed to be, wet out by like 6 a.m. Katrina time. And so I'm waking up to all of these challenges, and yet you have to show up, whether you're exhausted, whether you're drained, whether you want to just kind of disconnect. Being present on social media. If you're developing a brand, people need to see that brand, and they need to see that brand consistently. You see that, Amber does a beautiful job. She has an aesthetic, she has colors, she has a font. Irene has a very specific way that you see her content and you metabolize it and you wait for it. When there's a podcast that any one of us are releasing, what day that podcast is going to be released on. That consistency has to show up. The same is true of any habit, right? You want to lose weight, you want, whatever that habit is that you want to develop. The same is true of getting involved in a new arena within your career. You did it when you were in hygiene school. You showed up every day, whether you were exhausted, whether you hated your patients, whether you hated the skill evaluation you had to do today, whether you had an instructor that was picking on you, like whatever was going on in hygiene school, right? You had to show up and you had to be consistent. That consistency is critical. And one of the things that I really want to just take a moment to acknowledge every person on this panel for is the consistency that happened with every single one of these human beings during the global health crisis. Because the pandemic was absolutely a time when it would have been so easy. The vast majority of us had contracts canceling left and right, speaking engagements. I had a zillion airplanes I needed to be on and a zillion stages I needed to be on, and all of those got wiped out. And all of us showed up and we were consistent. We did what we had to do, right? We rolled up our lab coat sleeves and we got to work, and we were doing free webinars and we were creating complimentary content. We were putting those things out. That consistency, when literally the world is falling apart outside your doors and you're showing up and continuing to do those things, is absolutely critical. It's the difference between somebody who thinks this would be a really nice thing to do versus somebody who says, I'm doing it. This is my career, and this is going to be the way that I'm going to leave a lasting legacy. So consistency is critical.
Awesome. Fiona, what say you?
I think I got lost in what Katrina was saying.
Sorry.
That's a hard one to follow. You can do it.
Can you remind me of the topic that I'm gonna? Yeah.
Sure. Just as we kind of wind up here, like pick a pathway, your favorite pathway or a different one, and maybe one or two tips on how to get from where somebody who's watching is to where they want to go next.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for Katrina. Like, I got right in there on that one.
You're so sweet. Irene always yells at me about that. She's like, stop using your words.
Enamored
I was
by
just like,
you.
yeah. I would say definitely I have to say the networking. I feel like the majority of what is happening for me has come from me directly speaking to, putting myself out there, and just really engaging. So I mean, networking can be anywhere from online, it could be with your colleagues, it could be a study club, it could be at conferences, wherever you can do it, even with your colleagues at work. I know that we're always, in the op and heads down, I got to get to the next patient, but you would be surprised to know what your colleagues are doing in the office alongside of you. So making sure that you discuss with them, hey, what are you doing? What are you up to? This is what I'm thinking of doing, can really open up, different eyes, different avenues and stuff like that. So networking is really key. And then just really putting yourself out there, and don't stop at the, I don't quite have this qualification yet. I'm going to be honest, like I wanted to teach for a very long time, and I don't have my bachelor's yet. I'm still working on it, but I was like, okay, how am I going to get in there before I can, get all these qualifications? I don't want to wait 5 years. I don't want to wait 4 years. I want to get in now. How am I going to do that? Okay, so I found a way in, and in the meantime, I'm continuing to work on getting further in. So making sure that you're really not allowing qualifications to stop you, and you're finding that, that wiggle room or that loophole, or your passion is bringing you to the table to these opportunities.
Oh, great advice. Malia, what do you think?
Yeah, I think a big thing with hygienists is we love to be perfect, right? We're like a little bit type A, super smart, like say so myself, and just love to be perfect, which is hard sometimes to start something because you want it to be perfect, but just go for it. Like if you're like, I really want to start my own Instagram and educate patients, do it, start it. And it might not be perfect along the way. You're going to learn a ton. But just the starting and the momentum of that will really help push you and open doors that you might not even know. I definitely think communicating to people what you want is helpful too. It's also really weird at first to be like, listen, I'm going into sales, like this is my jam, and to start telling people, because they might not even know, or they might have an opportunity come up and be like, hey, I know she's interested in sales. I had no idea that would be an avenue they'd be interested in. So don't be shy to tell people like, hey, if you have an opportunity, I'd love to chat more. You never know what those conversations are going to open, and be confident with what you want with your next steps. It's weird and it's hard at first, especially if you're working in an office. You don't really want to like them to know that you want to leave. But at the same time, don't be shy to verbalize what's next. Put it out in the universe, and hopefully it'll come back. It'll come back for sure.
Fantastic. Irene, what do you think?
All things, I concur with all of the peeps. I had a really good question that someone asked me that I think this would segue well into. Someone asked me a question today about a posting for a job went up, a corporate position. Erica, if you're here, hello. She said she was joining in today, and that she feels that perhaps she's not qualified for it, and that they might not consider it, which is funny because actually this person used to work for me, and she said the exact same thing when I called her for an interview, that she didn't think that she was qualified to work for me, and she was one of the most amazing hygienists that I have ever hired. So if you feel that way, you need to take 3 deep breaths in, and then you say, not today, because you might not be the most qualified, but you are probably more qualified than somebody else. For example, has anyone put an ad out for someone on, like, you know, Craigslist or Kijiji or Indeed these days, and you get applicants for like a registered dental hygienist, and this person has never even attended school? So think about that, right. I mean, it's the reality these days. People are applying for jobs because they think it sounds fun. But if you have a little glimpse or glimmer of passion and hope and that, you know, wanting to learn, you likely will shine a lot brighter than someone that has bigger credentials and more experience. All of us didn't get to where we are today here because we let the words inside of our brains tell us that we weren't good enough, even in the moments, seconds before we're about to present a lecture and we're tearing apart our slides and putting them back together because someone on the other end is going to think that either you're not smart enough or you're not good enough or you're not eloquent enough. And the people that do send those negative comments or reviews, like we don't let that get to us anymore. And perhaps we let it get into our minds for a minute, but we easily compartmentalize it, put it aside, and then move on with the brilliance of the amazing things that all of these women and men on this panel are doing. So say no to the negative space. You don't have time for that. You don't have the energy for that. And your future is a lot brighter than those negative words that you will say to yourself.
Yeah. Easier
Awesome.
said than done sometimes, but
Yeah, true story.
You got to believe it. I mean, I still believe it sometimes, and I let that get in, and I say no. I say no, not today. Or if a message comes in on Instagram, or if someone tries to bring me into something negative, I say that is not the energy for me. I'm really sorry, but I can't participate in that. I mean, I've said it to Katrina before, and it's just no, like that's not. I don't want it in here, and you learn to cut things and people out if that's the energy that they bring to you.
Great point. Amber.
I will wrap this up with echoing what everybody said, because it was absolutely phenomenal. It's hard to go last, but I will say this is that your integrity and consistency is key. So you have to write down what you want to do and then work backwards. Figure out what your goal is. It's okay if the goal changes, but start running in the direction, and you are ready today. You really are ready today to create your dream life, and we are all here to help you do that.
I love it. So wrapping this whole thing up, gang. First, can we say thank you to Hugh Fruity Group for making this happen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome job. Super appreciate, as always, the fact that Hugh Fruity Group walks their talk. It doesn't happen every day in dentistry, so it's really nice when we find friends who do that. 2, if you didn't notice, being in the operatory in some way, shape, or form kind of counts for something. So it got said multiple times today that passion matters, and wanting to do this really is key to your success. And I'm going to say last and certainly not least, what I sort of experienced from this panel, not just today, but every day, is vulnerability gets noticed. Everybody here shared personal stories. It wasn't just about all the, it goes amazing every day. It's about the struggle. It's about the hardship. You're not alone on this journey. You're not the first person to feel the way you felt. So please reach out. This is an amazing group of people who clearly want to help you succeed as much as they wanted that in their own personal lives for friends and family. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. Ladies, it is truly a pleasure to hang out with all of you. Everybody, hope you have a great rest of your Monday evening. Cheers till next time.
Bye.
Peace out, peeps.
Peace out.
Cheers.